Hello, world, and welcome to the other episode of Kaleidospoke podcast. It is myself, Richie Rich, alongside the fabulous Mr. One and Only. I forgot your name.
Oh, how could you do that? The wine is setting in already, eh? What the hell, man? I was getting ready to be like, oh my God, thank you so much. I want to thank my fans all around the world, you know?
This isn't wine this week, it's grape juice. It's grape juice. Organic.
Yes.
Anyway, I hope you are all well. Whatever is happening in your part of the world. Today we've got a great episode as usual. Some great topics, timely topics, and I think it should be a good one. How are you? Before we start, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, man. Again, like I'm happy to be alive. It's been an interesting weekend. I'm really good, man. Everyone's happy, you know, and this is what keeps me happy, keeps me going.
It's great. I look forward to these talk therapy sessions. You know what I mean? It's good.
I know we got like specific subjects, but it just feels like, I'm glad to be talking to another good fellow human, semi-intelligent, and
Semi.
Yeah, it's cool. just send me.
Oh wow. You're too kind.
Sauce, bro.
All right. So let's get straight into it. I think we have a big topic. Like any modern day philosopher, you want to right the world, make the world right and a better place. And where else to start but our educational system, right? So we posed the question of, does university have a place in society in the year 2030 and beyond? I guess, you know, we're quite futuristic. We want to look into the future and see where we will land. We, in our crystal ball, we want to just seek the answers and then get the answers. Wrong or right, they're answers.
We got some. We got some. Hashtag this is not investment advice. Investments can go up as well as down.
Careers can go up as well as down.
Pretty much.
But, you know, I think so it's an interesting topic, right? I went to uni, graduated 2009, and it was a good experience. I came out of it, you know, bachelor's degree in business economics. Went into the world and I thought, gonna get snapped up. 2009, mind you, was a very crazy year because of the financial crisis. But you know, it was kind of always on the roadmap for me. I always thought I wanted to go to university, like many young aspiring people. Not all, but many. You know, university is a place of validation. It's a place of, you know, it's a base. It's like a something to aim for. And just sort of some brief history. You know, the first sort of university in Northern Europe was University of Paris, and it was like founded between like 1150 and 1170. And then on the back of that, there was like University of Oxford in England, which was established sort of the end of the 12th century. So, you know, it's been going on for a while. And back then, for sure, it was definitely the aristocrats, the nobles that were sort of attending to these university or these institutes. No women, no paupers, just the elite. And now we're in a time where, okay, university is quite fairly accessible, more accessible than it was. But there's still that old school elitism. There's still that ranking, that status. So I posed a question to you, sir. Does the university have a place in society in the year 2030?
Well, I mean, before we could look at 2030, I guess we got to look at 2021, right? And there's this question of old jobs versus new jobs. And I think some of the old jobs, historically, you'd want to be a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant or, something in a profession which takes years and years of discipline and years of study. You start off at university and, then you go along the path of law school, medical school, whatever it may be. And these are traditional jobs, right? But in the year 2021, you've got these kind of new age jobs. You could be an influencer, which requires 0 university hours. You could be an entrepreneur, which requires 0 university hours. You can learn a trade, which requires 0 university hours. And then again, looking at 2021, at least in the UK, in your kind of bog standard university, you're paying £9,000 a year for tuition fees. Now, I'm not trying to suggest that university doesn't have a place now, but what the picture I am trying to paint is that over time, universities getting more and more expensive, and what you're getting on your return has less and less impact. So if that trend was to follow for the next 10 years, given the types of jobs that we're seeing emerge today, I could argue that maybe potentially it wouldn't warrant you spending £9,000 a year on, and I'm not sure. I mean, if you think about industry qualifications versus university degrees, your university degree gets you in the door, but your industry qualification actually permits you to do the job that you're trying to do. So what if you're able to skip that kind of get in the door and just go straight to those industry qualifications? And I
Mm,
think um, as time is going on, we're finding that more and more courses are coming out where you can skip the whole 3 years at uni and go straight into this kind of dynamic course that you can then use in your career. So
mm,
fast forward 10 years with YouTube as this kind with this plethora of knowledge, and like it's demonstratable. Like, people demonstrate skills on YouTube that you can learn um within 10 minutes. Like, if
mm,
that continues to advance, and if you are also going into trades that don't require, especially if the trades are online, right? Like, if the
mm,
trades are online, why would you then go and sit in seminars and um and and lectures if actually the skills required for you in your job are posted online? You can get them online for free, and then you're going to be using them online. It seems as if maybe the whole £9,000 at 2021 prices could be argued that might not be warranted.
mm.
But again, I'm not saying the experience of university is nil, because it's not. It's not. We've both been to university, and some of the people you meet there, you end up being friends for life with, which is, you could easily argue that that's worth more than £9,000 a year. Um, and I'm not. Things are happening so fast now in 2021. But one thing is for sure is that things are moving kind of more online, and if things are moved more online, maybe those kind of traditional qualifications don't have that same gravitas in the world of the internet.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, right? Like, yeah, when universities were established, there was no such thing as internet. Knowledge was very much kept to the few, the people that could afford to, be taught how to read or send their children or teach their children how to read. There's a huge amount of illiteracy, and now the world has everything at its fingertips just through the mobile phone or, as you say, YouTube. And so there's so many people that have taught themselves to do skills or upskill themselves just through the internet, just through YouTube. And I think, yeah, it's definitely like the way it's going. Like as the internet gets faster, there's more and more content on the internet. The algorithms get smarter to help surface up what you need to know. It definitely challenges the place of a university, but there are certain like fields, and we're institutionalized. The world is an institution. It's a sort of um, it's a network of institutions that value these pieces of paper, these validations, these institutionalized um, um, factories, essentially, right? Like, the people that walk out of these high top universities very much walk into a job because they've validated themselves, or they have people in high places, and it's kind of a game of odds, right? It's highly likely that you're going to get a fairly smart person who's come from this institution, and I don't think that's going to go away. But saying that, of course, that's not to say that the online education or online courses or online learning won't have its more and more so have a place. I think especially in the technical disciplines, if you think about a mathematician or a computer engineer or a graphics designer, there is nothing really, you know, that's quite a new age thing, as opposed to law, as opposed to um, banking, I guess, as opposed to being a doctor. Those are very traditional things. Those are things that you have to study, and especially for being a doctor and law, you have to go to university for like 5 years, 7 years, whatever, do an extended course. So I think that stuff will very much stay and be less impacted by the on learning sort of educational wave. But the technical stuff, yeah, because there's a whole heap of people that have been learning how to code and get very well paid, because engineering is a very well paid career these days. Um, Data engineering, all that kind of stuff, um, that you could just teach yourself online and pass a few tests and bag yourself a job. 100K, 60K, 200K, it's all for grabs. So I think it's
Yeah, yeah,
that it would definitely, it won't go anywhere because the world is institutionalized. We have this like this institution, these elites, these powers that be. Um, but more and more so, I think we'll have the technical people more coming through these non-traditional routes.
yeah, yeah. I'm inclined to agree with you because you know the traditional jobs that you mentioned, um, they definitely require a type of attention that is probably off screen, right? Like you're gonna have to you're gonna have to read a certain amount of text. You're gonna have to consult with experts in the field, and you might not be able to do that the same way you'd be able to do some of the more technical jobs. I think another factor also is as the developing world catches up with the developed world, inverted commas to both of those terms, um, you could you may also see the value of a degree from say the UK or Oxford or Cambridge. You might see that decrease over time because imagine yourself or me, and we head over to I don't know South America, and we pick up a job in some business job, whatever. They would at this point in time they would prefer us over a Colombian native who studied in Colombia simply because we have a British degree, you know?
Mm. Mm.
Um, it it seems to hold more weight. It seems more desirable by those, you know, who can't easily access that. But as the developing world catches up, and that's happening all the time, as the developing world is catching up with the developed world, you know, you could argue that, you know, these kind of Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge degrees may decrease in value somewhat. Not to say it decrease to nil. I'm not saying that at all
Mm,
because I don't think that's going to happen. You know, a lot of these universities are the almost like gold standard of education. So it's like the likelihood that they're going to disappear is minimal. You know, they'll
mm,
probably be around for a while. But you know, versus I don't know. I'm Aaron, and I got my degree from London Met, and here I am in, you know, sunny Colombia. Please choose me versus, you know, somebody Miguel, let's say, who's got his degree from the top university in Colombia, and Colombia is like flourishing as a nation. Why would they then choose me? You know, I could see that
mm,
being like, oh well, you know, as they catch up, they're like, well, actually, this has more value here than that does,
mm.
simply because our economy is in a good place. So I think over time we'll see that too. And if I was to ask, in fact, let me ask you just and see if you can answer yes or no, right? Because I know we've already posed the initial question, but let's see. Because you know me, I like simple, bro. Um, if if in 2030, right, your little one is going to be, both of our children are going to be gearing up to think about the path of university. Is it something that you would ask them? No, not only. Is it something that you would pay for?
You know what? I think yes, for sure, because as as a as a parent in general, but I feel like it gives a net almost for your child. Like it gives like a you know for one it's a good. I feel like university is a good thing to aim for because then you're pushing yourself academically in primary and secondary school because it's all kind of gearing you up for that almost, right? And if it's not, then it's like, what is the point of this? But if the point is very clear and you say this is the goal is university, but in order to get to university, you have to get good grades in primary school, get good grades in secondary school, get good grades in college. At least it keeps their focus while they're in their teens to to then just pass that goal and that's it. And then I think once they go to uni, then of course they don't have to follow that path. They could do whatever, but there's a floor in which they I feel like they'll they'll propel from. So that's kind of
Mm,
that's my thinking. I don't know. Might change my mind in
right.
10 years.
For sure, for sure. And you know, obviously, it would depend on what they want to do. So that's another big question. You know,
Of
if they want
course.
to do something that requires them to, if it requires them to go to university, then you know you pay. But you know, and my answer is initially off the bat, no. Um, I wouldn't, I wouldn't be willing simply to dish out 30 grand just because that's the so-called next step. I'd much rather, you know, send him away for a year, go Thailand, go Southeast Asia, do whatever you're doing. Discover yourself, have a good time, but think about you and and what you want to do and where you want to be, and come back and get ready to work on that. And I think um, if he wants to be something that doesn't require the kind of the kind of intense study as a doctor or a lawyer, um, I would probably discourage it. You know, I'd probably say, you know what, it's better that I give you this 20 grand, you know, and you try a thing.
Interesting. So you would even stop him from going to university after college and say, look, don't even go to university yet. Don't even apply. Take this money, take a trip, think about it, and come back.
I wouldn't stop him because he's my son and I love him. So I wouldn't be. University is progression. At the end of the day, um, if he wanted to, you know, better himself, and he felt that university was going to be the way to better himself, you know, I would not blanket say no. Do you know what I mean? But
Mm,
I would say I would encourage him. You know, you're done with your study, especially if he does well in his studies, if these studies still existed at that point. Um, especially if he does well, I would encourage him to take a year for himself and say, "Look, man, you go off. This year will be valuable to him." You know, like so many people don't find themselves until after university. That, you know, they've been going through the whole academic route for, you know, since they were 5,
mm,
and finish at university and like, what the fuck is going on here? This is the real world. You
mm,
know, I'd much I'd much rather him have an idea of what the real world is. You know, I'll give you some money, but you're gonna have to go and get a little job in some little bar somewhere, and, you know, meet some people and talk to people, and you know, make a little name for yourself and do a little thing and come back. Um, and at that point, and I think there'll be those nights in that year, those nights where he's just looking at the ceiling and thinking, "What am I doing? Like, what's next for me?" You know, and I'd rather that those questions come for him uh when he's 18 as opposed to when he's 21 or 22. Do you know what I mean? Or 25 even. um I'd rather him consider it then, because if he makes a decision earlier, the likelihood is by the time he is 23, 24, he's in a completely different position into somebody who just kind of gone to university for the sake of, you know, filling the void
mm,
after they're 18. And I'm not
mm,
saying that's what people go to university to do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I would, you know, if it was my money, you know, you asked, the question was, would I pay? You know, if it was my money, I feel it would be far better invested in him trying to find himself and then coming back. And then, you know, if he found himself and said, yeah, all right, dad, I actually still want to go to university, you'd be like, all right, cool. You know, here's the 20 grand, you know, like that you got to pay, and, you know, do your thing. But if he came back and said, look, dad, yeah, if he said, look, dad, like, you know, I don't want to do that. I want to be, I don't know, some type. I've got an idea for an app, or I've got some idea for some innovative stuff. You know, like I've got this 20 grand here that,
mm,
you know, you can go and experiment with that, even if it fails. You know, this was what I'd have given paid for your university anyway. Do you know what I
mm.
mean? Like, so yeah, that's my stance.
Okay. I mean, I almost, I think you could, I think you could still do that, but go to university. So, you know, I would kind of be a, I'll be very much this on the same side of doing that. Like, you know, trying to, you know, encourage experiences and travel the world before jumping into a career, because I feel like there's still a lot of development that can be done in university, socially, you know, probably academically. Just there's still growing up to do. So I would do that, but I would cheer that on after university. So I would still recommend 18 to 21. Do your 3 years, 4 years, bachelor's, masters. After that, I'll pay for a year for travel, and then, you know, then you can do what you like. So that's a similar thing, but I think I would still rather just, you know,
Basically, you're saying you're willing to put more than the university fees into the thing.
of course, what are we here for, right? These kids ain't cheap.
Yeah, Bank of Dad.
That's
Jeez.
it. That's it. No one said it was
Yeah,
cheap.
man. Yeah.
All right.
Nope. Nope.
So we've made our mark, and also just to note, you know, Harvard universities in the US are pretty expensive. You know, Harvard, for example, is
Yeah, yeah,
50K
yeah.
a year as opposed to our 9K a year.
Mm.
You know, so we've
Yeah.
kind of we've got it all right, it seems. But who knows? In 10 years' time, that might all be equaled out.
Maybe. And worst case scenario, you know, scholarship, my brother. Scholarship.
It's true. Javelin scholarship.
Do you think?
All right. So moving on to the next topic. Now, I think this is a one that everyone probably would have an opinion on, but you know, no one's ever happy, and it always comes up in sort of the elections, right? Like, you know, where's the money going? You know, we all work and we all pay taxes. Taxes are being paid. Where the heck is that money going? And sometimes I see just so many roadworks in the UK. I feel like that's where it's all going because it's ridiculous. Roadworks are happening consistently and for no reason, it seems. Anyway, so the question is, if you had the option to decide where your taxes go, what would you assign them to? And before we dive into that question, let me just give it just a current status or the current situation for the UK, right? So I think this is in 2018. The UK government spent 711 billion of taxpayer money. It's quite a big number.
Mhm.
And I'll just go through a few of the top sort of like places where that money goes, right? So 24% went to welfare. So that's, job seekers allowance, etc. 20% went to healthcare. 13% went to a state pension. 12% went to education. 5.5% went to our national debt interest. So that's the money that we borrowed and we need to pay it back,
Mhm.
just the interest. 5% went to defense. So just as like the top six, right? Um,
Mhm.
so, I mean, Mr. President Aaron, we want to vote
Mhm.
for you. I want to vote for you. Um, Blue party, red party, I don't mind. Black party, whatever. What would you say? What's your campaign? Where would the money go?
Well, first things first.
Except for Bitcoin.
I was literally about to say, first things first. If you decide to, vote for me for president 2030, where universities might not exist, um, you would probably end up giving 88% of your taxes to whatever my interests were.
Wow, some Gaddafi Putin esque.
pretty much, pretty
Wow.
much. Sorry, guys, but okay. So let me be a citizen instead, right? And so suppose I've got this tax bill. It's 100 grand, let's say, and I have the option as to where I'm going to put this money. Um, some of these sectors that you mentioned before, they're really important, right? And I had to sit down and think about, okay, where would my 100 grand go? Um, and most of my 100 grand, 20%, would go to education because I actually believe that the true wealth of a nation is in the people and their level of education. So 20% of my taxes would go to education. Uh, Coming in next would be 15% of my taxes going to welfare benefits for vulnerable people. Simply because not everyone's got it. Not everyone has the ability to do what I do, and I think some of those people should be supported. Um, Again, 15% to housing, um, public housing mainly. For people that can't afford private housing. 15% to technological advances. Like that's where I'd want 15% of my money to go towards. Like you gotta have the edge over China. If you wanna, if I can choose, that's where I want it to be. And then I've got 10% to the health industry, healthcare. Hopefully wherever I'm at in this, kind of dystopian world, there is some type of NHS, some kind of public health initiative. 10% to infrastructure, so those roadworks that you're talking about, Yep, yep. You're gonna kind of need them. Got to keep them upgraded. The drains, you got to keep those things going on. Yeah, yeah. I know
It's
you're
too
shaking
much.
your head, bro,
It's
but
too
yeah,
much.
kind of got you got 10%, a whole 10%. You gotta keep that going. And then 5% to public sector services. So, the people that kind of keep these kind of public sectors going, your road sweepers, your dustbin men, um, all the kind of like admin in between, 5% for them. 5% to environmental initiatives, uh, and 5% to defense, and that would be it. And I think, that 5% to defense, I think is necessary, man. You got to be ready for not war on your territory, hopefully not, but in case, yes, war on your territory, but then how much you would have to be engaged in other people's wars and other people's campaigns. So 5% to that. And that's my whole 100% of my 100 grand disappeared into the mist.
Wow. Wow. Can I get a standing ovation?
Boom.
So do you think with that policy you'd firm your seat into, number 10? Do you think you got a good chance?
I mean, I'd like to believe that if I was campaigning and I said that's where taxes are going, that people would prevail and be like, yeah, that all sounds pretty reasonable. But then the people that are in my party, they're probably going to be pretty angry with that. Do you know what I mean? Like they won't elect me for leader if that's the case, because there isn't the 40% for MPs and politicians. That's not in the manifesto. So I can't imagine I'd get that far.
This question: what about security? Where did that come in?
In what sense? Security for what?
National security.
That's defense, bro. It all has to fit into there. You got to make it work.
What was the budget for that?
5%.
I mean, I'm laughing. I don't even know if that's high or low, but that does seem low. Like it seems like you're going to get conquered and infiltrated in like the next 10 years.
Go wrong. It could go wrong. I'll make a deal. I'll make a deal. I'll get out. I don't know about everyone else. I'll get out. I'll make a deal.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I would
Oh
not like to
shit.
live in your country.
Yeah, man. What do you mean? My country is a lovely utopia, man. What do
Is
you
it?
mean?
It sounds like it. You
I
know,
think so.
to see you on a golden throne. You know, grapes being fed
Yep.
while you have a palace in Nicaragua. Um, okay, all right. So touche, touche. I think I've kind of grouped mine into 4 buckets. So one of them is social development. I kind of cheated, really. I've kind of gone on a high level. But one of them is social development, which includes education, health, um, culture, and other soft stuff. And I've put 55, 65% to that. And that includes welfare as
Wow.
well. So that includes
Okay.
it's like basically 30% education, 25% healthcare, 10% welfare. And I would
Mm-hmm.
hope that uh, as you increase the educational budget, people are more educated. There's less people on welfare, and so that welfare contribution can go lower. Obviously, you still have those that the vulnerable and the you know those that can't work. Um, Healthcare is a funny one because I lived in Singapore for a short period of time, and there's very little healthcare support. There's no NHS. It's very much you got to pay a private amount, like your insurance or your private monthly amount, and it's not a burden on the economy. Albeit it has a small economy, it's so small that you can handle it. But part of me feels like what would healthcare look like if you just made it a bit more commercial? Because it feels like there's too much bureaucracy around it. It's not as efficient as it should be. But that's from the outside looking in. I'm sure it's a behemoth. It's totally big. It always comes up. But anyway, we got healthcare there, 25%. Economic development, I've put down as 15%, and that includes transport, trade and industry, um, infrastructure as well. So, yeah, economic development, 15%. And then security, I put 10%. So,
Fair.
um, defense, home affairs, foreign affairs, you know, my MI5s, my MI6 guys, just got to give them some paper out here. Um, what does that leave me? I don't know. What does that leave me? 55, 65. So, yeah. And the rest goes to administration.
But there's not much left after that. Maybe what, 5%?
Yeah. It's fine. We'll live on that.
Yeah, yeah.
No, hold on, wait. So it's
Fair,
25%,
fair.
and then that's 60. That's 55, 65, 25. Yeah, it's about 10%. Government administration. You know,
Yep.
we all got to get us tea and scones during our meetings,
I
our very
guess.
important meetings.
Yeah,
Taxis.
I guess, Taxis.
That.
What about second houses? I'd want a second house if I was in your administration.
Well, you couldn't be in our administration then. We'll have one house and
Huh?
one timeshare. One mansion we all
Oh.
can go to every
Oh,
now and then.
wait. So, like, let me ask about this mansion. Is it like a communal mansion? Like, you can just come there if you need to come, and if you're in, suppose the mansion's in London and you live in Warwickshire, let's say, um, you can just come. You have a little bit of a timeshare. You can bring your kids. There's like 5 pools, and
Yeah,
we all can
exactly.
just turn up.
It wouldn't
Oh,
be in
I
Warwick.
like that idea.
It would be in like Marbella or something like that.
Oh, sick! I'm in. I'm in. I'm in. Yeah, I'm in. The minute he was like, Ma, I'm like, yeah, Ma, anything. Ma Lago, Ma, anything you want.
Anymore.
In. Innit?
So
Oh,
yeah, I think
man.
that's it. I think
I mean, it's interesting. This is an interesting concept that you're able to decide where your tax money goes, because ultimately we're at this point where you pay your income tax or whatever taxes you end up paying, VAT, whatever, and you just don't know what happens. And in fact, no, that's not true. You have an idea of what happens, and there's a lot of people in government um that abuse the amount of tax revenue that they receive, and that's probably one of the main reasons why they want to be in government. Do you know what I mean?
mm,
Um, and I think the idea that people having a choice, like, fine, you have to here's a certain percentage of your income that you have to pay, right? But I think people would be more willing to pay if they could decide where it went, literally.
mm. What was interesting I found was the national debt interest, right? So it's
Mm,
5.5%, right? So basically, let's say for example, your 100 grand that you have every year, you got to pay 5.5 grand a year to pay off some of the interest, just the interest on your debt. Um,
mm.
would would that be livable? Would you be okay with that? Like, given you've kind of gone YOLO, like if you consider the UK, they've gone YOLO, um, and sort of
Mm.
bailed out everyone, and spent and borrowed 5.5 grand a year on 100 grand, salary. Would you?
But what's your options? I mean, the other option is dedicate more of that 100 grand to the debt so that you can release yourself from the debt quicker, right? Like,
Yes, but or would you just tick along? Like, there's kind of zero scope for the government paying down debt, like in any sort of substantial way. So
hmm.
you could just tick along at 5.5%, maybe it goes to 6, and you're okay. I'm just kind of just framing the fact that, you know, governments and countries are borrowing all the time, and everyone go like it's a big number that we're borrowing, that it seems on paper. But if you look at it, 5.5% on national debt interest, does that seem so bad?
I mean, but but a good question is that look, bro, I never borrowed that I've never borrowed that 10 trillion pounds. It wasn't me. That wasn't my decision. Why do I have to pay that back? That wasn't my loan that I took out, Um and that's where it gets a little bit grey, right? Like some the government has made decision. I'm not saying the government haven't given me any type of, you know, furlough or whatever. Like, but I am saying that that was not a decision that I was faced with. Why should I have to pay that?
You don't get to make that decision. You know, you're like, it's your dad. Boris Johnson is your dad. So, and your dad has said,
Mm,
as a family, your dad has said, as a family, we need to borrow money. We've got bills to pay. And you're like, okay, well,
mm,
okay, dad, you got to pay him. And so
mm,
you don't really get a say in this. You can't say, okay, it wasn't my debt. You know, as a country, we are where we are. You're in a country, we're in this together. So, you know, it can be irresponsible. Don't say that the spending is correct, and it's, you know, there's going to be isms and schisms, but, you know, it's got to come from somewhere.
all right. So of your tax bill, that 100 grand, would you would you then say, all right, 2% of whatever that is, I'm gonna give to the government for their own dealings, whatever they may be, whether it be loan debts or, politician salaries, whatever it is. Would you give your own 2%, just literally two? Would you allocate 2% of your taxpayers' money to that?
What, above and beyond my tax? Because if within my tax, then it's just taken as a one
Would
number, right?
so so you had 10% for like national security, defense, all that stuff, right? Would you
Mm.
reduce that to 8%? Would you reduce that to 8% and allocate that 2% for interest on loans, um, salaries of politicians, blah blah blah?
No, I already have had an admin spend for the salary, but the 2% for loans, yes, because the 2% for loans, yes, because in actual fact, that money's been spent. It's got. I mean, the responsible spending question is another thing, but to say that I've borrowed money from, you know, World Trade Organization or other, you know, private institutions, and I've spent it on something productive for the country or that the country needed, then yeah, you know, the 2%, you've hopefully you're getting the benefits of that 2% somehow, some way.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, I
you
don't
know,
know. That's not in my not in my budget, bro. Not in my budget. Sorry.
it's fine.
Listen, I can't pay those bills. Those are your bills, bro. Those are your bills. Boris, those are your bills.
All right. So on the same topic of us trying to correct the world and, you know, rebel against the norm and the institutions, and make the world a better place. There's nothing other that's happened recently than the very epic, I'd say, events that have occurred in the stock market with none other than Wall Street bets versus Wall Street. Now, just for some context, if you haven't heard, you've maybe been under a rock or whatever. Um, Wall Street Bets is a Reddit forum. Reddit is a website, and there's various different forums. Um, and this specific forum talks about bets on Wall Street, so betting on the stock market. But there's a lot of memes that fly around. There's lots of like, we go into the moon type messages, and it's all kind of like a bit bravado esque um, in there. So it's a very funny, very lively forum. Probably one of the liveliest on this Reddit website. And what happened was they essentially made one of the a couple of stocks recently, but one main stock, like the poster stock, go to the moon near enough, which is called GameStop. So, and this was a stock which there was existing hedge funds that were betting for the stock to go down. So they were short in the stock, and so I think they caught wind, or this was public information. These Wall Street bet guys, there's hundreds of thousands of people on this group. It was like, let's just buy options, buy stock, and make it go up to kind of supply demand equation. And let's like stick it to these Wall Street hedge funds that like think it's going to short and push them out of the position, because if you're short and it goes up, you have to pay a hell of a lot of money, especially at the rate this particular stock went up. So craziness, madness, absolutely mania. Like the stock went up nearly like 4,000, 5,000% in a short period of time. It's gone to the moon, coming back down, and these hedge funds have lost money. They had to borrow money. They said, hey, like, this is not safe. And now there's a big debate of do these guys know what they're doing? Should it be like, should someone be held accountable? Is it, is this right? Is this legal? And so there's a big debate, and a lot of these Wall Street bet guys use an app called Robinhood, which is a very kind of like appropriate name, because it's Robinhood, as we all know, robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. So they have like these zero commission trades, and it allows Joe Blogs to access the market pretty easily. And so there's been a wave. There's a culture like that's sort of rising up from the ashes. And unfortunately, I missed the moon shot, but yeah, it's an interesting time, and this has like been all over the news like crazy. And I think there's more to come.
So I'm going to put you on blast for 1 second. You said that you think you missed the moonshot, but actually, no. I asked you this morning, did you buy silver? And yes, you did. You're trying to get the moonshot.
Well, that who knows what's going to happen? I don't know yet. It hasn't gone to the moon yet, so I've got my ticket.
No, not yet. Not yet. I think it's funny because you mentioned about whether this is legal or not, but it's interesting that hedge funds, huge big CEOs, big money is asking for regulation now, right? Like, what the hell? Why now? Like before, you was able to manipulate the market. You could short stock whenever the hell you feel like it, and then pick it up when it's on the floor, and just take it over. Yet when the people come along and say, you know what, we're not gonna let you do that. It seems like these guys have thrown their rattles out of the pram and been like, oh, sugar regulation now, please. This is ridiculous. How dare they do this? And it's only because big hedge funds had to probably pay hundreds of millions in fees for those short positions on. It wasn't just GameStop, it was AMC. Like it started to spill over into crypto as well. You saw Dogecoin, which is a coin that is just a meme, do 900% in one day.
Yep.
And you could start to see what would have been scary to maybe hedge funds, institutional investors, is that if retail investment got to a point where there were so many people on board using platforms like Free Trade, Robinhood, whatever it is. If there were so many, like just saying, actually, no, we're just going to do this, like you could start to see the power being taken away from these guys. But I think there's a huge question, right? And this is, and I'm gonna jump back onto the other side of the fence, which is a reality, which is reality. Um, Institutional investment versus retail investment are very difficult to compare, man. I mean, institutional investment and hedge funds, they got serious cash, like actual crazy cash.
Mm,
So, like it's very difficult for retail investment and retail investors to be like on every position, on everything. This is what we want to happen, and that's what's going to happen.
mm,
There's an argument to say potentially there could have been some institutional investors behind this move. You never know,
hmm,
because the money is so influential. It's huge. I mean, for most people, the average Joe, it's unimaginable
mm,
that how much money these guys have and how easily they can influence any market that you can think of, any financial market. So it's it was a wild week in terms of is the balance of power shifting? Is there a tide in the the masses being able to take control of their own financial well-being and say, yeah, well, we're not going to let GameStop get you know, fucked over. We're gonna come and save them and get rich and forget these Wall Street guys. Like these billionaires are already rich. Like we're gonna take our thing and we're gonna keep GameStop being some crazy stock. GameStop is just what is it? Just some game shop or some shit.
yeah, it's like literally, it's like
What
blockbusters for games.
Yeah, it's nothing special. Um, and what was interesting was the momentum and how the momentum carried across other stocks. So, you had AMC, you had Dogecoin, you had I even saw Blockbuster. Blockbuster, bro. That shit I'm surprised that's still a public company. It's ridiculous.
Mm.
Blockbuster did like 700%, which is dumb. It's actually crazy, and it's almost saying that, it's almost this indication that wow, like we can take control of this market, and I don't think that's true. You can take control of some particular stocks, but markets is another world. Like I'm not sure about that.
But I think the 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 retail investors have actually, you know, 2020 has been a crazy year, right? And people are staying at home, working from home, and
Mm,
and also kids that are going to university or was going to university, they're also at home. And what else are you going to do? You're going to find a lively crowd or a tribe, and you're just gonna, hold bants and try to make money, right? Like a lot of these guys on Wall Street bets are messing around with options, which is a very highly leveraged position, right? So you can use a small amount of money to get a large exposure, and the moves could be very very crazy. And like out of boredom and shit, like not boredom, but also just like entertaining ourselves. These guys, like looking at stocks, they're becoming investors themselves. They're becoming traders, and it's a kind of wisdom of the crowd effect, right? Like if you keep if you have so many people in one sort of place and in conversation or voting up and down, then you're going to get a consensus, and the consensus might be as good or better than the actual institutions themselves, because there's a bigger amount of people. And just like,
mm,
for example, I think the amount of households in the US that own stocks is 36%, as opposed, like, so 36% of the total market, versus like hedge funds, they only own 3% apparently of the total market. Um, and so, like, this is basically like these stats, they're becoming more and more, retail investors are becoming more and more, having more and more exposure and just buying into the market. I mean, it's been going up for like the last 10 years. And and so and so, like, and America's very much pro stocks and everything else. So yeah, it's an
mm,
interesting thing. Like there's a counterculture happening in Reddit. They're essentially saying, look, the banks got bailed out in 2008. No one paid for it. or we paid for it, and so we want to just get paid now. We what's wrong with that? And the funny thing is, I think this
Mm.
app that everybody's using, Robinhood, actually halted trades um, on some of these stocks, and a lot of the apps have halted trades because the margin requirements are so the amount of money that people that need to put up for these stocks have increased. It's just a funny debate. It's just a funny debate. Like you have these this kind of this culture that's bubbling up. They're at home. They're like keyboard warriors, but actually smart. Some of them. Maybe there's a lot of people that's just jumping on a bandwagon, and they're pushing prices. They're doing what institutions do anyway. There's there's like this really interesting interview with this guy called Jim Cramer, who's like he used to have a hedge fund, and he does CNBC, and he talks about, and this interview was like in 1990s or something like that, but he talks about what hedge fund managers need to do in order to move the market. They need to put out fake news almost, or call up certain people and
Mm.
just spread rumors around to move prices, move things. And he openly said this, and and there's a lot of these. I think is it Chamath? I forgot I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he was on an
Magi.
interview as well. Yeah, he was on an interview as well, and he spoke about these idea dinners where hedge fund managers or people that have big money will have a dinner and talk about similar ideas. They'll say, hey, like GameStop, I think we should buy it, or we're buying it, and then try to rally around a few guys, and before you know it, they're pushing up the price. So it's interesting how it's like the David and Goliath, and I'm
Mm.
all for the David. I think everyone's for the David. That's why it's caught the news. Like we want David to win. Goliath is there. It's got like backing Goliath is boring.
And almost, what has Goliath ever done for David? All of us are here being David's, bailing out Goliath whenever Goliath decides that it makes a move and it doesn't go quite the way that it's supposed to, doesn't mind, because ultimately there's, you know, billions of Davids that will come to the rescue. And, I think at this point, you know, there's enough momentum through, platforms like Reddit that people can band together and actually, have serious influence financially. Um, yeah, man. Yeah, man. It's interesting because you mentioned about the trades halting on Robinhood and across a number of platforms. And there's always a question about the liquidity of these platforms or whether or not if everyone fucking decided to cash out at this point and stock their positions at the top, what the hell would happen to the platform? You know, um, which is a big question, and a lot of these hedge funds and institutional investors are behind these platforms. They're not like they're not decentralized platforms, like they're companies like anything else. And it's quite interesting how these platforms were just easily able to come to a decision and say, "Oh no, no, no! Oh no, no, no! Oh no, no, no!" we just turn it off. We just turn that off for a day, you know. And 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 then it's a question as to whether or not that's going to further infuriate groups that Wall Street bets and the average guy or the average people or the people, not the average people, the people. It's a question as to like, what, actually, if that's the case, if that's what you're going to do, we're going to start looking at all your short positions. We're going to look at all your sell orders and we're just going to start mucking it up for you. Do you know what I mean? And we saw that today. Well, we're seeing that with silver. That's apparently at this point, as we're recording, that's apparently the next thing. We'll see whether or not that comes off. We saw some bullshit today with XRP, but crypto is a bit too dark, it's a bit too in the dark to be able to put it off efficiently. um, but yeah, it's almost like the people are now thinking about banding together in order to upset the pattern. And COVID has contributed to that massively because everyone's at home. A lot of people are financially in the rut, and they're thinking,
Mm,
with my last £1,000, I'm gonna just bloody go for GameStop or AMC or whatever.
mm,
And like, it's crazy over the last week, and as the GameStop stuff happened, like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people have come to these platforms, and new signups on the eToros and the free trades and Robin Hoods. Um, so there's so many more people that are now like, oh, dude, we need to get on this. We need to get on this. And at
mm,
first, it's everyone's just, yeah, they were just trying to make a buck. But as time goes on, we'll see how that all plays out. We talk about crypto a lot in this podcast, and one of the things behind Bitcoin, more so than the rest of crypto, is to take that power away from institutions to just kind of manipulate currency and manipulate markets and so easily. It's like, no, here's your value, here's your thing. The only thing is, in crypto, it's a bit wild west, like you can say about Bitcoin, but everything else after Bitcoin, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
but
you know.
Bitcoin can get manipulated pretty easily as well, right?
Yes, because the market is still very young. Like the value of Bitcoin is in what, the billions itself, which is affordable by hedge funds and institutional institutional investors. It's affordable. You can easily just buy all of it and then just be like, yeah, yeah, we're just gonna be wells. You
Mm.
know.
um, I think what's interesting now is just the digital cultures that are just becoming more stronger. It feels, and actually being heard and making waves in the market. Obviously, the news wants to pick up on things, and they'll pick up on whatever's going on at the moment and at a time. But more and more, we're just seeing these movements, short waves, big waves. Maybe they're all happening anyway, but sudden events sort of bring it to the fore. And yeah, it's just an interesting time. Like the internet's only getting faster. We've had a good strong 10 years of social networking, real steroids social networking, and these are the effects that's coming. So you can only imagine what's going to happen in the next 10 years, 20 years. It's going to be an interesting world. And even with these trades and these moves, that you have various platforms where you can copy individual trades. Like if I'm a trader and I'm Joe Blogs on this trading platform, you can copy my exact trades and I get a little fee. So it all be like there's unbound opportunity for everybody to become an entity of themselves, like you Inc. or you dot Inc. And that's even more powerful when there's a whole community moving things. So I think we're going to see a lot more, and I'm just hoping that I'm on the next spaceship when it goes to the moon, whatever that is.
Bro, ultimately, we all want to be institutional investors.
We all want to be whales.
Yeah, we all want the ability to be like, yeah, let's manipulate our market. Yeah, let's be the bad guy. But no, 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 no. I'm being disingenuous. That's not true. I think more so now than ever before, people have wanted to be, free of the tyranny of capitalism. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can go onto the internet and have your own YouTube channel and express yourself, or have a podcast like we have and express yourself quite freely. So it's like it's addictive. It's addictive to be able to just be you. And I think the thing that's really tying people, or kind of detracting from that of you being you, is money. That's the last thing. That is simply the last thing. The internet has allowed you to be whoever you are, but
Mm,
money is the only thing that is stopping you, like, not going full throttle on that. And I think maybe this could be for those that are willing to play the game and willing to gamble. This could be a kind of waging of war on that. It's like, all right, look, like it's time for us to like take off the last chain. This is the last chain. Once we take that off we go. We're gonna have a good life, and it doesn't have to be Lambos, but at least I can decide when I wake up and decide who I want to help and decide what area of expertise I want to go in. And again, I think that only works for the people that are willing to put stake on it. But I think more and more, especially after the events of last week, we're starting to see more and more people put stake on that idea.
Couldn't agree more.
Mm.
Yeah. All right, good people. On that note, vote for Aaron, next president, next prime minister. There is hope. He is our last hope. So, hey guys, get your votes in early because there'll be airdrops if you get your. If you don't know what airdrop is, look up airdrop and you'll know. Any final words?
Guys, look, man, be in control of your lives. Like this time is the best time of all times. Like you're at home, most people twiddling their thumbs, looking up at the ceiling. Do what you know you're supposed to be doing, man. Like your destiny's in front of you. That's it.